Mayor, thanks for giving us some time today. Can you give us your thoughts on government's proposals on the municipalities?
In terms of what they're proposing for reform, I know that they've published a document the beginning of this week, which basically outlines from the feedback that they've had, unfortunately feedback that they have yet to share with anybody, that they feel that there are two ways that the two municipalities should go. One is that it should essentially turn into quangos, or that their functions be wound up into the various government ministries. The latter sounds very much like what they proposed back in 2010 and from the very same minister. That was defeated back then. I would hope that it is being defeated again. But I really wonder why they're taking this action. If you look at how a quango normally works, it's what they call a quasi-autonomous non-government organization. They're supposed to run pretty much on their own. They have various sources of funding. They obviously have to match their expenses and essentially live according to what they get. And that's not really different from the way the corporation is being run right now. Our agendas for our various meetings are published several days prior to the meeting. The minister has the right to attend himself or to send one of his public officials to attend on his behalf. Nothing can be put forward for a vote unless it is a part of the agenda. And the minister has ultimate authority over whether that resolution is deemed passed or not. It will not pass without his say. What more power do you need? He also has the ability to, by instruction, general or specific, can advise the corporations to go along a particular path. If we go the route of a quango, he already has those powers. So we go along the route of a quango. Quangos don't necessarily hold their meetings in public. In fact, I'm not aware. That doesn't mean it doesn't happen, but I'm not aware of any public meetings that quangos have where they discuss the business of the operation. There is no ability for the public, if they're dissatisfied with the way that the quango is being run, of being able to boot the people out of office, as happened with my predecessors, and allow a new group to come in. That basic democratic right, no matter how tainted it might appear to people who really just want, one man, one vote, but it is a democratic right which is there and is taken away. If they go the route of government taking over all the assets and all that stuff, they say that's a land grab, and I find it difficult to counter that thought going around in the general public. The interesting thing, though, is St. George's currently, all the ratepayers right now have their rates paid on their behalf by government to the council. Currently in Hamilton, which is the capital of the island and where all the government administration, or the overwhelming majority of the government administration takes place, we have a number of government buildings here. We have the same services offered to government by the corporation that is offered to each and every other ratepayer. The only difference in that is that the ratepayer actually pays for those services through their rates. Government doesn't pay for it at all. In fact, its presence in Hamilton is subsidized by our ratepayer, almost the exact reverse of St. George's. So if they are going to wind up, and this is the big question that hasn't been asked, if they are going to be winding up all the corporation's assets and activities into government, does that take away the expense of the corporation? And does that allow the city ratepayer to now be excused of their rates and for government to actually pay its own way for its presence within the city.
Let me talk about ratepayers paying their rate. What sort of figures are we looking at on a yearly basis?
It is off the top of my head is around about $9 million in terms of city rates.
Has anybody from government, whether it be the minister or his officials, reached out to you and spoken to you personally about their plans or thoughts?
We have had, I would say, with his predecessor, with Walton Brown, we had one meeting at council. Nothing was shared. It was the various questions which you can see on that, which are available on the forum.gov.bm website, which are, how would you describe your relationship with government? I mean, I'm sorry, just a bunch of really inane questions being asked, but he did not in any way come back with how he felt his relationship was with the corporations. We've had several, I would say probably 3 meetings with the current minister. I've had a private one where he handed me that documentation. I would say that the private meeting that I had was about the only time where there was actually an exchange of ideas. The other ones that we've had, it's been very much of him sitting like Buddha at the head of the table, asking what our thoughts were, without giving us any inkling at all about what the thoughts were of the government. Most of our focus, primarily beforehand, was to do with the administration of the city. Because if there has been any issue over the last 10 years or even 50 years in terms of the city, it was how it was run in the period between 2012 and 2015. It was a debacle, that really should be the concern, I would say, of government, to ensure something like that doesn't reoccur, and that the ratepayer has the ability to recall an administration if it goes off the wires.
Does the government have any justification to continually look at municipalities and with the look of implementing change?
There certainly is a need for change, but there is a need for proper coordinated change. The big issue that I think our administration has had to deal with is the ability to interact with different government ministries. We've had that with the developments which we currently have in line in terms of our sewerage, for instance, where we are looking at instigating a very finer series of screenings within our pumping station, which would remove virtually all of the solids from the effluent. The byproduct from that is sort of a very light ginger beer color material, which would be pumped out, and even if there does happen to be grease getting into the system, every once in a while some grease does get into the system, but it would have absolutely nothing to bond with, and the whole instances of grease balls would become a thing of the past. I have spoken with the past 3 ministers on that, including Michael Fay when he was minister with the OBA, to advise we are going down this route. Our technical officers are speaking with government technical officers, but I want you as a minister, please, when you're talking in cabinet, we are looking at this. This is a project which we can do We have the financing, we have the ability to do this, we have the ability to implement it shortly. Only to find out several months ago that actually Works and Engineering have a program in place which would be instituting an island-wide sewerage system. Every single private house, every apartment, every condo, whatever, to be hooked up in this thing. I don't see that happening in a year or two. I'm seeing what we can do being a year or two in terms of reaching completion. I see any instances where the U.S. Consul might have to advise health warnings disappearing completely during that time frame. But no, this project now is on hold. Hopefully the Minister will review it again, and we will be able to get further movement on that. But that's just one instance of, quote unquote, a failing part of our infrastructure. No, we are fully aware of what's happening. We are fully aware of a solution. We have got to the point of being able to raise funding on it and able to start going. It's not us that's saying no, it's somebody else. But, you know, if we can get a better means of communication, a better focus as well from government in terms of moving forward. They would like us to start work immediately on a waterfront project. While I'm aware that there are discussions elsewhere within government of cruise ships coming back into the city and having their own particular requirements. You can't go down one street and then be directed as you're coming to the dead end of, oh, sorry, you should have been over in that one. The government needs to sit together collectively to figure out what they want how they want this to move forward, and they need to work with us in a partnership. When Paula Cox was Prime Minister, Azhar was Premier, and I was Mayor back in 2012, working with Bermuda First, we were working on the concept of there being a port authority where there be shared ownership between the three. You can't do anything without government approval. We have the waterfront. Bermuda First and their business partners have the financing. That's the way to move forward, and to move forward very, very easily. Not just saying put out an RFP and let's see what happens. The last docks I built. Oh, sorry. Yes, I never built any docks. You know, I've been.
Moving forward, what would be your hopes to see a resolution?
There is a need there is a definite need for local government. We have to be able to respond at a speed which is completely different from the needs of government. We need government oversight. I do not argue over that at all. That helps to provide a consistency in terms of the way moving forward. That enables our two aims to be focused together on one target. My priorities and the Council's priorities today might not be the same as government's today. But they're ultimately going along in the same direction. How can we do the tweaking? How can we see what the differences are to make that work in a more efficient manner? But it is very, very important that the ratepayer within the city or within St. George's has the right to determine where their tax monies are being spent. And it's the old American battle cry of, you know, no taxation without representation.
Without this proposal being put on the table, just give us an overview of what you and your other members see for the city moving forward.
Sorry, I don't think
Just general plans that you have for the city.
Well, I mean, the major one is in terms of a capital expense right now is to do with the sewerage issues. One of the main issues, which is certainly affecting the businesses and the ratepayers in Northeast Hamilton is the issue on parking. We have been trying, I was trying back in 2012 to have changes in our ordinances back then to enable us to do the ticketing and the clamping and really and the people that are abusing the residents' car parks and the handicapped car parks. It's a small thing, but it really gives a lot of grief to the people that live and work in that area, where they are basically held handicapped by people that work elsewhere within the city, just taking over their parking areas without any fear of repercussion. You know, that's a small thing. We are working with the smart city in terms of those are already programs that are in place. We have the Scoot system, which is handling the traffic lights. In this year's budget, we are working on the traffic lights along Church Street to ensure that all of those are working on a program basis. So hopefully you will have the experience of being able to go from one end to the other with going the right speed limit, hitting green lights all the way. It's you know, it's certainly doable today. But the things that we are looking at are things that we know we can pay for. Anybody can borrow money. It's paying back that's the challenge. And Bermuda is so challenged right now in terms of our debt. For us to be going off and running up other debts and saying, oh, don't worry about it, Mr. and Mrs. Bermuda, we have Bermuda Inc. that's going to pay for it. No, we're all going to pay for it ultimately. We have to live according to our means. And that's what the city has been very responsible about. We have a balanced budget that we have to meet every single year, and even in the bad days, that budget was being met every single year.
Thank you for your time.
Okay.